The dense jungles of central India were alive with their usual symphony of sounds, chirping birds, rustling leaves, and distant growls. Deep within this wilderness, however, a solitary leopard was suffering. Its once glossy coat was patchy, covered in scabs, and swarming with parasites. The majestic creature, now emaciated and weak, dragged itself through the underbrush, desperately searching for food but finding none. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Villagers living on the outskirts of the jungle had begun to notice strange behavior. The leopard had been spotted limping near their livestock, its movements sluggish and uncharacteristic. Though wary of leopards, the villagers couldn't ignore the pitiful state of this particular one. It seemed more like a shadow of the predator it once was. They reported the sightings to the local wildlife rescue center, fearing the animal might either die a slow death or pose a risk to their community. The call was answered by the Jungle Conservation Rescue Team, a group of seasoned wildlife experts and veterinarians who had dedicated their lives to protecting endangered animals. Led by Dr. Meera Anand, a renowned wildlife veterinarian, the team quickly assembled. Meera, a calm and composed leader, had seen her fair share of desperate cases, but the villagers' description of the leopard's condition unsettled her. When the team arrived at the village, they set up a temporary base and began their reconnaissance. Using camera traps and thermal imaging, they tracked the leopard's movements. The footage confirmed their fears. The leopard's body was covered in sores, and swarms of tiny parasites, ticks, fleas, and mites were visible even in the grainy images. The animal's gait was slow and unsteady, suggesting severe malnourishment and pain. "This isn't just a case of poor health," Meera explained to her team during their briefing. "The parasite infestation is massive. If we don't act fast, it will die from anemia or secondary infections." The operation to rescue the leopard was risky. Leopards, even when weak, could be dangerous, and this one was unpredictable in its deteriorating state. After carefully studying its patterns, the team decided to sedate it near a clearing where it frequently rested. The plan was to dart the leopard from a safe distance and transport it to a rehabilitation facility for treatment. Early the next morning, the team set out with their equipment, their nerves taut with anticipation. Meera, armed with a tranquilizer gun, positioned herself on a high rock overlooking the clearing. The rest of the team waited nearby with a specially designed cage. Hours passed before the leopard appeared, moving cautiously through the clearing, its ribs visible beneath its patchy fur. Meera steadied her hand, aiming for the muscular part of the leopard's hind leg. She took a deep breath and fired. The dart hit its mark, and the leopard startled, letting out a low growl before staggering a few steps and collapsing onto the ground. The team moved swiftly, approaching the sedated animal with a mixture of awe and urgency. Up close, the extent of its suffering was even more apparent. The parasites were everywhere, clinging to its ears, burrowed into its skin, and even crawling around its eyes. Meera's heart clenched at the sight, but she pushed aside her emotions and focused on the task at hand. The leopard was carefully loaded into the cage and transported to the rescue center. Once there, the real challenge began. Meera and her team started by shaving parts of the leopard's fur to expose the worst areas of infestation. They worked methodically, removing hundreds, then thousands of ticks, fleas, and mites. Every inch of the animal's body was treated with medicated baths and anti-parasitic sprays. The process took hours, and by the end of the first session, the team was exhausted but determined. Blood tests revealed that the leopard was severely anemic, with dangerously low levels of red blood cells. It was given intravenous fluids, vitamins, and a carefully monitored diet to help it regain strength. Meera stayed by its side, ensuring that it was comfortable and monitoring its progress closely. Days turned into weeks, and slowly the leopard began to recover. Its appetite improved, its coat started to grow back, and its eyes regained their sharp golden hue. Though still wary of humans, the leopard showed signs of trusting its caretakers, particularly Meera, who often sat nearby, speaking to it in soothing tones. One day, as the leopard stood on its feet with renewed strength, Meera felt a surge of pride and relief. She and her team had saved this magnificent creature from the brink of death. But the work wasn't over yet. The leopard couldn't remain in captivity forever. It needed to return to the wild where it belonged. After months of rehabilitation, the day of release finally arrived. The team transported the leopard to a remote part of the jungle, far from human settlements. As the cage door was opened, the leopard hesitated for a moment, glancing back at the humans who had saved its life. Then, with a powerful leap, it disappeared into the dense foliage, its movements fluid and graceful once more. For Mira and her team, the sight was bittersweet. They knew the leopard would face challenges in the wild, but they also knew they had given it a second chance. As they packed up their equipment, Mira reflected on the courage it had taken, not just from her team, but from the villagers who had cared enough to make that first call. The story of the leopard's rescue spread far and wide, inspiring countless others to see wildlife not as threats, but as beings worth protecting. And somewhere in the jungle, under the shade of towering trees, the leopard lived on, a testament to the resilience of nature and the power of compassion. After months of rehabilitation, the day of release finally arrived. The team transported the leopard to a remote part of the jungle, far from human settlements. As the cage door was opened, the leopard hesitated for a moment, glancing back at the humans who had saved its life. Then, with a powerful leap, it disappeared into the dense foliage, its movements fluid and graceful once more. For Mira and